My name is Caleb. I work the night shift at Whispering Pines Motel, up where the pines grow taller than telephone poles, and the road gets so quiet you can hear your own pulse. People assume it's an easy job. Sit at the counter, watch late-night TV, hand out keys. But this place doesn't really sleep. The halls breathe. The lights flicker like they're remembering something. And we have rules. Not suggestions. Not guidelines. Rules you follow, or you disappear. Rule 5 is the one they whisper about. Don't give out the key to room 13. Don't ask why.
We have rules.
Don't even look at it.
If you break
Whispering
Rule
Pines
5,
Motel sits along an old
leave.
mountain highway that most people stopped using decades ago. The road curves along the ridge, through forests of pines so dense that daylight seems to get swallowed before it reaches the ground. Most travelers pass through without stopping. The ones who do usually aren't looking for comfort, only a place to disappear for a night. The motel itself is small, just 2 wings of single-floor rooms and a narrow lobby with a cracked front desk counter. The neon sign outside flickers a dull, tired red, as if it's been trying to die, but hasn't quite managed it yet. When the wind blows, you can hear the buzzing transformer hum like an insect trapped inside its own shell. I work the night shift, 10 p.m. to 6 in the morning. That's when the mountains get quiet. No cars on the highway, no birds, no insects. Just the wind threading its way through the pines like something searching for an open door. Most nights are slow. I make coffee. I flip through a paperback I've read too many times. I listen to the radio static when the station cuts out. But even in the stillness, the motel never feels empty. It feels like something is awake, just out of sight watching the halls. Our guests come in 3 kinds. Truckers running cross-state routes who just need 4 hours of unconsciousness before dawn. Couples who don't want their names on any paper. And
Yes,
people
welcome.
who look like they've
Enjoy
been
the
running
evening.
long-time people who sit with their backs to the wall and stare at the exit like something might follow them inside. I don't ask questions. Not here. No one does. The manager, Mr. Callahan, is an old man with silver hair and a voice that never rises above a low murmur. He has the posture of someone who has spent a lifetime listening for something most people can't hear. Sometimes, I find him standing at the lobby window at 3 a.m., staring into the tree line. Not moving, not blinking, just watching. He didn't train me on the job. Not the paperwork, not the booking software, not the cleaning schedule. The only thing he explained were the rules. He told me on my first night, while I was still setting my coat down, mind the rooms, mind the guests, and never open room 13. He didn't smile. He didn't blink. He just kept his eyes on the pines outside, like something
Quiet
out there
tonight.
might step closer if he looked away. There's a board of keys mounted behind the desk, each one labeled with fading numbers. Keys to rooms that creak when you turn them. Keys to rooms that smell like old rain and travelers passing through. Except one, room 13. Its key is sealed inside a brown paper envelope, tied with old cotton string. The envelope has been there so long that the paper has darkened and softened, like it absorbed moisture that didn't come from this side of reality. No one touches it. We don't dust it. We don't acknowledge it. It's simply there, like a shadow you don't mention. Room 13
Forest changes
sits at
after
the far
dark.
end of the hallway, where the overhead light never seems to fully warm. The window of that room faces directly into the forest, no parking lot, no road, just trees stacked among trees into darkness, so deep it feels like a second sky. Sometimes at night, I hear footsteps walking the hallway outside the lobby. Slow, measured, not dragging, not hurried. But there's never anyone there, and it's always around 2:13 a.m. I tried mentioning it to Callahan once. He didn't look surprised. He just said, "Don't look into the hallway when you hear it. Let it pass. That was the moment I realized something very simple. This place isn't haunted. A haunted place is something you can escape. This motel is a threshold, a border, a door that should never be opened. And someone or something is waiting for an invitation. The bell on the counter rang just after
Never look
midnight,
out
one
back
soft
window
chime
after 2.
that sounded more like an apology than a request. I looked up from the ledger and saw the man from room 12. He had shaved gray stubble and the road-burned eyes of someone who had followed taillights for too many states. His jacket was damp with a mountain fog that hadn't reached the parking lot yet. He leaned close, shoulders hunched like the lobby itself was listening. "Who's in the room next to me?" he asked, voice low and even. Someone kept whispering through the vent. "There are a dozen ways to soothe a guest. You can blame the wind. You can blame the plumbing. You can offer a different room so they feel like they've escaped the thing that scared them." But none of those lines felt honest in my mouth. I could feel the corridor behind me, its air cooler than the lobbies, its light thinner, like a church before a storm. "There's no one next to you," I said. "Room 13 is vacant." His pupils tightened. Not surprise confirmed. He already knew. He just wanted me to say it out loud, so the shape of his fear would become real and stop changing. "Maybe it was the fan," I added.
"I'm here."
And we
Where
both
are
pretended that sentence had bones.
Please just show
He
yourself.
hesitated, then nodded once and walked back down the hall. I watched him on the security monitor, a thin figure moving through the grainy black and white, like a moth ghosting past a porch light. The camera outside room 13 showed nothing. Door closed, frame dark, floor bare. The shadow underneath the threshold was the same as always, too dense for a hallway with working bulbs, dense like velvet soaked in rain. I told myself the darkness was a trick of contrast. I told myself a lot of small lies that add up to one big one, that the world is only what we can measure. The lobby exhaled. The vending machine hummed. The neon sign traced its tired pulse against the window. I took a sip of coffee that had gone cold in the way of motel coffee, where the taste of metal travels up through the steam. When the wall clock blinked from 2:12 to 2:13, something in the building tightened. Not a noise. A decision. Heel, toe.
If you
heel.
hear your name, pretend.
Footsteps, patient as a metronome,
Pretend you didn't.
came from the blind corner where the hallway turns toward room 10 and the ice machine. They were not hurried. They did not falter. They carried the careful weight of a person, measuring their steps so the floor would remember. I kept my eyes on the ledger because Callahan's voice, quiet and unavoidable, was already in my head.
Something is wrong
Don't look
here.
when you hear it. Let it pass. The steps grew near enough that I could feel their echo in the bones of the counter. Old wood knows when it's being witnessed. It holds dense the way people hold names. The footsteps stopped at the strip of light that spills from the lobby into the hall. A breath gathered, as if the empty air had lifted a hand to knock, and chose not to. Silence is not empty at Whispering Pines. It presses. It tests the seams around doors and the places where drywall doesn't perfectly meet tile. It finds the vents and the keyholes and the hairline cracks in thought. The silence in that moment was shaped exactly like a person leaning, listening. "Callow," it said, not a whisper. A breath that had learned the letters of my name and practiced saying them until they were almost human. The sound touched the shell of my ear, even though there was 10 feet of clean air between me and the hallway. I swallowed, and the act sounded loud enough to be impolite. I turned to the guest log, not because it would help, but because paper is proof in a way that cameras never are. Ink can be argued with, but it does not lie by accident. On the page, room 13 was blank. It had been blank for months. No bookings, no walk-ins, no maintenance tickets. Some nights, I wrote the number 13 on a sticky note and stuck it under my keyboard, just to confirm the shape existed outside my head. The lobby phone rang once, a single polite chirp that should have meant a wrong number or a trucker asking about vacancies. But the line went dead when I lifted the receiver, and the dial tone came back with an exhale like old lungs. On the monitor, room 12's feed showed the man sitting upright on the edge of his bed, hands on his knees like a kid at the doctor. He tilted his head toward the vent. I could tell, even without sound, that he was listening the way you listen for your own name in a crowd. I stood. The corridor felt colder. The carpet had that dampness that comes from long winters and longer secrets. Each door had the same brass plate with the same number font, a design chosen to be forgettable. At the end of the hall, where the light thins no matter how many bulbs you replace, room 13 waited. Not open, not ajar. Waiting in the way that closed eyes wait before a bad dream remembers itself. I knocked on 12. The man opened quickly, gratitude and fear tripping over each other on his face. "It stopped," he said. "When you stood up out there, it stopped." "That's good," I lied, because good is a word we use in motels the way sailors use lucky coins. "If you need a new room." "No," he said too fast. "I don't want to move closer to it."
Don't answer it.
He looked past me toward the dark upper corner. "It knows when I move." I listened. The building breathed. Somewhere ice surrendered in the machine and fell into its plastic bin. A car down on the highway breezed through our mile of mountain and kept going without seeing the sign. The pines outside rubbed their needles together and made a sound like pages turning in a book you're not finished with. "Try to sleep," I said. "We'll make it quiet." He asked. I didn't answer. He shut the door. I stood in the hall longer than I meant to, reading the numbers on each brass plate, as if a different sequence might appear if I blinked in the right rhythm. When I finally returned to the desk, the keyboard seemed closer than before, the way cliffs feel closer when you look down. The envelope that held the key to 13 sat where it always sat, brown, soft-edged,
Silence
tied with
returns
string like a
too
package
clean.
that won't admit where it came from. The paper didn't move. That should have made me feel better. It didn't. At 2:27, the radio station failed and returned, each time bringing a little more of the pine dark into the lobby. I tuned the dial until a preacher's voice arrived from a state away, talking about doors that are really choices and choices that are really doors. He laughed at his own metaphor, and the laugh sounded just like the neon buzzing. A handprint bloomed on the lobby window. Not sudden, not theatrical. Just there, a fog palm shaped the size of mine, fingers slightly too long, each whorl of pressure exactly where it should be, if someone had leaned from the outside and looked in. But the parking lot was empty. The glass was cold. I watched the print fade, as if a warm face had backed away into night. I don't
Not
pray.
tonight.
I place things. I moved the ledger 2 inches
Not
to the
tonight.
left, so the grain of the wood ran parallel to its spine. I straightened
see
the
you.
bell. I
You
corrected
shouldn't
the
be here.
angle of the pen cup. I made the world hold still in small ways.
What's wrong,
so
child?
the
You're
large
trembling.
ways wouldn't tilt. The phone at the desk
I'm
chirped
so
again.
cold, Caleb.
Once, and the room took a breath with me. I forced my voice to be the kind you hear at hospitals and airport gates, the voice that makes tunnels sound normal. "Front desk," I said. The line was quiet. I could hear the tiny crackle of electricity, the seashell noise of a wire doing its job. Then static formed the shape of a vent's metal grid. Every other second, the static thinned, and something breathed across it. Not words, not language, just the practice of being a mouth. I set the receiver down gently. I wrote a note 2:32 a.m., call from no one. I added a second line, I didn't mean to add, it knows my name. I checked the guest log one more time, as if the act could invent a resident where there was none. The emptiness on that page had a weight. The number 13 looked like a door written sideways. Back on the monitor, Room 12's man had lain down without getting under the covers, shoes still on, one arm draped across his eyes, the way people do when they remember being children. I wanted to call him and tell him something soothing and false. I wanted to say that I would sit outside his room until morning. I wanted to believe the morning would matter. The building shivered. The light over the vending machine flickered 3 times, always 3 and steady.
The sound you hear
The footsteps returned,
is the sound
moving
you
away
choose.
now, not toward the
sound you
lobby,
hear
but toward the
is
far
the
end,
sound
where
you
the paint
choose.
never dries right. Heel, toe, heel, toe. They stopped at 13 and did not knock. What came instead was smaller, crueler, the quick mechanical chirp of a key turning in air where a lock should be. Nothing opened. The door remained a door, but the shadow under it breathed in and out, and the rhythm matched a voice that was learning. I whispered, to no one, and to the pines and to the envelope on the keyboard, don't. The building did not answer. The building had learned how. I checked the guest log. Room 13 was empty. Yet someone
Please
whispered
stop.
my name from behind its door. I didn't get the rules on paper. Nobody does. Whispering Pines teaches with nights, not manuals. It puts its hands on your shoulders at 2 a.m. and turns your face toward the thing you don't want to learn. If you learn quickly, you keep your face. If you learn slowly, the motel keeps it for you. Callahan never said the rules like a boss training a new hire. He said them like a man honoring the terms of a truce. He would stand at the lobby window with his hands in his pockets, eyes on the tree line as if the pines could read lips. And he would recite each rule the way priests recite vows,
Caleb.
quietly, completely,
Andrew
and
Williams.
without hope of amendment. Rule 1. Don't look out the windows after 2:00 a.m. In the woods, something walks and learns your voice from the inside out. After midnight, the forest drops its colors and becomes a shape. Every trunk is a rib,
Look,
every branch
whatever
a finger.
you do, stay out of that hallway
2,
until I get back.
4
It's not
a.m.
safe.
on my 7th night, I forgot the rule that hadn't been given
We can't
yet.
let him find out where the documents are.
A rattle passed through the
Someone's
neon
coming.
transformer, and the glass pane in the lobby darkened like a pupil. Between the trees I saw walking not a deer, not a drunk, not a bear. Steps that understood gravity but wore it like a borrowed coat. I leaned into the window. The forest leaned back. Distance thinned. Not the way it does when you move closer, but the way it does when it moves closer to you. Something turned its attention, and I felt the specific weight being measured. Then a voice came from behind the glass, from the place windows keep for rain and reflection. Caleb, honey, it's late. Come help me with the back door. It was my mother's register, tired, patient, amused at my slowness, beautiful in the exact and cruel way memory is beautiful. My mother has been dead 8 years. I closed the blind so hard, the wand snapped and plastic teeth scattered across the floor like sleep. In the morning there were 5 long pale prints on the outside of the glass, spaced just too far to be a human hand, as if someone had pressed from the wrong side of a dream. After that I taped a scrap of paper under the cash tray. It reads 2-0, close the world. I don't look out after 2.
Come
If the
closer, I
parking
have a
lot wants
secret
me,
just for
it
you.
can learn to knock.
Your
Rule 2,
father
if you
hid
hear 3 knocks,
biscuits
don't answer.
again.
It needs your invitation more than it needs your door. There are many kinds of knocks. Drunk knocks, apologetic and too loud. Angry knocks, hard, fast, performative. Lost child knocks, uneven, wet at the edges. The one that matters here is the patient knock. 3 times. Space between each is exact as a metronome. Knock, knock, knock.
What is happening?
The first time I
Oh my
reached
God,
for
look
the
out!
lobby handle,
Get down,
Callahan's
everybody, get
hand
down!
closed around my wrist, and I was briefly certain that
He
bones
knows where the
could bruise
documents
under
are
a whisper.
hidden.
We stood side by side,
We have
heads
very
slightly
little time
bowed,
left.
not out of reverence but out of measurement, listening to the rhythm that is older than doors. It can't cross thresholds, he said, voice low. It can only be asked. On the 3rd knock the building seemed to inhale, the way a stage inhales before the curtain goes up. Silence followed, but wasn't silence so much as distance. The sound retreated exactly the way a person
A
walks
synthesized
backward,
voice fades
careful
into
not
a
to turn
static-like hush.
Later, when I asked who or what had the patience to wait out a century of closed doors, Callahan looked at the glass and said, "Patience is how it eats." Once at 3:19 a.m., the knocking came from two doors at once, room 8 and room 14. I called both rooms. Both phones rang on my desk. Rule 3. Don't help guests who ask for the way out. Some of them are not guests, and some of them are trying to make you one. Not everyone who checks in begins anywhere. We get men whose plates don't belong to any state and women whose coat buttons carry dust the color of photographs. Their shoes are wrong for the season, and their eyes are wrong for the room. They don't ask for extra towels or how late the coffee is fresh. They ask only one question, and they never move their mouths quite right. When they do, "How do I get out of here?" Once,
Don't invite
on a
it.
soft night when I thought kindness could be a light, I answered. I drew a map on a receipt, the S-curve to the highway, the gas station with the one working pump, the county road with a broken sign. The man watched my pen like a dog watches a hand. When I finished, he didn't look down. He looked at me as if a mirror had finally turned to face him. "You see me," he said. Long, delighted. "You see me." The air behind him bent, as if the hallway decided to bow back. The shadow on the floor lengthened in the wrong direction, away from both lights. I slid a random key from the board and pushed it across the desk without breaking eye contact. He took it like a gift and walked down the corridor without looking at numbers, his feet landing where feet had landed 1,000 times before. In the morning, the bed was made with a precision beyond habit, the shower perfectly dry, and on the pillow a lattice of pine needles arranged into a rib cage, delicate as a nest and exactly the size of a human chest. When someone asks for out, I count to 3 and say nothing. I file their question under weather. I practice unseeing the way you practice a language you don't want to forget. Rule 4. When the hallway lights flicker, bow your head. Something tall is passing. It loves crowns. You can feel it before the bulbs confess. Your teeth hum. The hair at the top of your arms remembers a childhood dog and stands up to be counted. Then the fluorescents do their ritual, 1 flicker to warn, 2nd to measure, 3rd to claim. On the 3rd flicker, anything that lives too high meets what walks too high, and the two do arithmetic with you in the middle. Leela, our housekeeper, who spoke to the rooms as if they were shy animals, didn't know this rule the first month. We found her at dawn, not collapsed but arranged standing, spine bent backward past the place
Hey there.
spines are allowed
Here,
to
take
go,
this. It's hot out.
chin
Oh,
tilted
thank you
at a
so
reverent
much. I
angle
appreciate
to
it.
something no one wanted to name. Her eyes were open and watering gently, as if the hallway ceiling had told her a joke she was trying to understand. She lived. Lila still
Here
lives.
is your room key, Miss
If you
Johnson.
measure life
we
by
hope you
breath
enjoy your
and
stay with
pulse.
us.
Thank you. I
But when
appreciate
you
that.
speak, she tilts her head as if the words are arriving from above, and her hands never lift higher than her shoulders. Callahan replaced every bulb, and the sockets blackened in perfect circles, scorch halos that don't wash away, suns that mark the path of a tall pilgrim. Now, when the light stutters, I bow. I let my crown be just another shadow among shadows. Then I wait until the air unknots. I don't look up to see which door it wanted. I already know which one it chooses when it's hungry. Rule 5, never give out the key to room 13. Room 13 isn't a room. It's a door. And something on the other side wants to trade places. The key sits sealed in a brown envelope.
So is the
old
host joining
fibers
us
have
tonight?
learned to be gentle.
We were just wondering.
The string loosens on nights
As I
when
told the
pines
others, he
move
should be
without
down shortly.
wind, and the paper puckers as if a mouth is forming under the flap. Sometimes the envelope is warm. the way a coat is warm after someone steps out of it. The board hangs it with other keys, because the lie of like the others helps daylight pretend. I have stood in front of that envelope and felt something pace behind a door at the end of a hallway that ends inside the envelope that hangs on the board on the wall in a motel inside a mountain inside the dark. Not begging, not knocking, practicing. Breath lengthening to sentences. Syllables learning how to wear faces. The man in room 12 came back twice more. The first time his voice was hoarse the way voices are, when a person has been forced to repeat a plea until the plea runs out of words. He said his wife was in there. He said he could hear her through the vent, and then worst of all he said the part that makes men cross oceans, she needs me. I told him the rule. I told him the rules are the building. He stared at the envelope like he could teach it to choose him. When I refused, he laughed once, without amusement, as if to say that between a man and a piece of paper, there is only ever a delay. He left without slamming anything. I listened to his steps measure the hall and stop at 13. The handle did not turn. The door did not open. But the shadow along the threshold breathed in and out like a creature learning to sleep. The second time he returned, there was ice in his hair. He had been standing outside, listening through glass as if distance could be trained to behave. He didn't ask for the key. He asked for permission to stand with his ear to the door. People ask for ridiculous permissions at night. I told him no, and he smiled the way men smile when they have already decided which sin is theirs. He went anyway. I followed at a distance and watched him lean. The wood accepted his weight the way a parent accepts a child who has fallen asleep without deciding to. The building listened with him. After a minute he stepped back, and when he turned, the look on his face was not relief or terror, it was recognition. He didn't say my wife that
Crowns
time.
down.
He said her name.
Live
I have
longer.
not written that name down. Not because names have power, names are just receipts, but because the sound of it felt true inside the wrong mouth. Night after night the pressure increases, like weather with an address. The envelope loosens and tightens. The string frays a little more. The electricity falters in the minute between 2:12 and 2:13. Something practices the turn of a key where there is no lock, and the weight of a hand where there is no hand, and the rule remains a line across which we continue to stand, because we have not yet been shoved. Callahan, on a night when the wind carried wood smoke, and the radio
How much
would
for
give
the
us
light
nothing,
cheese?
but a baseball game from 3 states away,
50 baht for 1
rested
kilo.
his forehead against the window and said, "There are only 2 kinds of doors, Caleb, the kind you open, and the kind you become." He did not look at me. He didn't have to. The envelope had already turned its face toward us, like an animal waiting to hear its new name. I asked myself stupid questions. If I gave the key, and the door unmade itself into forest, what would be left behind? If I burned the envelope, would the key remain inside the ash, the way bones remain inside a pyre? If I ran, would the road keep me, or would the miles arrange themselves into a hallway and bring me back to a number that is not a number? The board of keys hangs, obedient, glittering with ordinary teeth. The envelope does not glitter. It rests, patient, the way a scale rests before the weight. Callahan's cadence, the way he says it every time when the night edges close, room 13 isn't a room, it's a door, and something on the other side wants to trade places. His voice is not warning anymore. It's a receipt. We already bought this. The night the rule broke, the air tasted like a battery left on the tongue. A storm had been circling the ridge all
How hard is
evening
it to
without
just issue a
finding the
new key?
motel.
I
Thunder
am a
kept
guest
counting
here.
to
I
3
am trying
and
to help
forgetting
you,
what
madam.
came
If
next.
you would
Just calm down.
The neon sign outside struggled, sketching
She's
the
calling
same
me.
tired red
Oh,
syllable
Benny.
on the window
Rang.
until the glass seemed to memorize it.
Air pressure drops
At
deeper.
1:58 a.m., the door banged open, and a man stumbled in room 12, jacket crooked, knuckles scraped like he'd been arguing with a wall. He smelled of diesel and liquor, and the kind of grief that wears a person like a jacket inside out. His eyes were wet in the corners and bright in the centers, like headlights just before impact. "I need 13,
Refuse.
he said. The words slipped, but the need didn't. "She's in there. She's been calling me since sundown."
Eleanor.
"No one is in," I started. He
I
slapped the
still
counter, not
miss her
hard,
laugh.
just final. I heard her in the vent, not the breathing. Words. She said my name. She said the thing only she could say. He spoke her name then, and the syllables felt true in the wrong mouth, the way a borrowed key feels true in the wrong lock. Stormlight flickered. Somewhere in the bones of the building, a pipe clicked like a throat deciding what to swallow. "It isn't a room," I said, the line I had learned to say as if it could be a door by itself. "It's a door," he finished, nodding, desperate, agreeing with anything that got him closer. "Good. Then open it." I should have called Callahan. I should have read the sticky note under the till 2-0. Close the world. But guilt is a locksmith. The man's hands shook and steadied and shook again, like someone trying to hold a ladder in wind. He wasn't angry. He was chosen by a voice he loved, and the choosing had hollowed him out so he would travel light. "Please," he said. The word didn't beg. It weighed. The building breathed in. The keyboard seemed nearer, old brass teeth glinting, like the patient smiles of drowned men. The brown envelope that held 13 lay exactly where it always lay, pale, puckered, string loosened by a night of invisible fingers. I told myself I would take it off the hook only to make a point. I told myself I would show it to him and then put it back. I told myself the rule could be obeyed after we both looked at the same line. I lifted the envelope. It was warm. The string slid loose as if it had been tied to fail. The paper opened its mouth. Inside, the key lay like something asleep in a nest, not heavy, not light, simply decided. "Don't," I said to myself, as if the word could catch my wrist. I handed him the key. He held it the way people hold sacrament, 2 hands, eyes down, a breath that tries to be quiet and can't. He didn't run. He didn't thank me.
She's
He moved
here.
down the corridor with the same careful pace he'd used when fear was a shadow and not yet a map. I followed. Not beside him, behind him, because shame prefers the second
Room
step.
13.
The hallway lights stuttered once,
She called
twice. I bowed out of habit and out of terror. On the third flicker, nothing touched crown or bone. The tall thing that loves crowns was elsewhere, or watching, or satisfied. Room numbers past 9, 10, 11, 12. The corner where the camera never quite focuses. The carpet grew damp underfoot, the way old books grow damp, with the breath of whoever reads them in secret. We stopped at 13. There is a kind of silence that means no one is home, and a kind that means everyone is listening. This was the second kind. The man leaned his forehead to the wood and whispered her name, once like a code and once like a prayer. The door accepted it, the way a mirror accepts a face, not approval, not denial, just recognition. He slid the key into air that remembered being a lock. Something inside turned. The door opened, not into a room, not into a closet, not into a corridor arranged differently. It opened into trees, dark, stacked, infinite, standing much too near for the footprint of the building. Wind moved through needles, and yet no wind entered the hall. A night from elsewhere stared into our night, and did not blink. The forest smelled like wet iron and old pennies on the tongue. The floor of 13 continued as packed dirt for 1 step, 2, and then stopped pretending to be flooring at all. "There," he said lighter, almost laughing. "There you are." "Don't," I said,
Thank
but the
you.
word had already failed once and was used up. He stepped across. There wasn't a ripple, no scream, no fall, no cinematic correction of distance. He simply was in the trees, the way people are in childhood photographs, present in a past no one else can enter. He turned to look back. For a second, I thought he was going to wave like a man boarding a bus. He opened his mouth and called my name. I heard it from inside the trees. The sound had distance that didn't match the feet between us. It reached me the way church bells reach a town. They weren't
Catherine.
arriving through the wrong air. Then he took another step. The needles caught his jacket, the way fingers catch a sleeve. The dark rearranged itself politely, and he was gone, not swallowed, not erased, placed somewhere useful to whatever wanted the place. The door stayed open. The forest stayed forest. Sir, I said to the trees, because habit writes scripts and scripts keep us standing. The pines didn't answer. The dirt didn't mark. But the threshold breathed a thin, practiced enout like someone trying the shape of lungs for the first time. Down the hall, a sound began. Knock. A pause long enough to read a line of scripture. Knock. A pause long enough to change your mind. Knock. 3. Always 3. Another door joined in. Then another. Room 2. Room 6. Room 11. The pattern multiplied like a hymn sung by rooms, each knock patient, spaced, hopeful. The motel had learned a new way to speak, and was practicing it everywhere at once. Phones started to ring, but only once each. The front desk. Room 5. The line by the ice machine. Each ring cut off the instant a hand reached for it, as if touch was the wrong verb. Caleb, the forest said again, more certain now, as if it had found the key to the syllables that make me stand up. The wind in the needles imitated a voice the way a mouth imitates a prayer, clumsy at first, then confident. Behind me, the keyboard clicked. One empty hook. Then a second. Then a third. Keys I hadn't moved were gone in the way stars are gone when a cloud decides to be a country.
What are
The
you?
lights over the vending machine flickered their 3, and
What
I
are
bowed
you?
without thinking, crown low, eyes to floor, because reflex is the only theology that works quickly. Callahan, I shouted. The building kept his name. Doors held their breath, so the sound had nowhere to go but back into my own chest. I should have slammed 13. I should have run. I should have done a human thing louder than the inhuman things were doing theirs. Instead, I stepped to the threshold and looked across the line into a forest that didn't belong to this mountain, into a dark with a different moon somewhere behind it. Give him back, I said, and the sentence sounded small, like a coin flipped at a courthouse. The trees rearranged a little, the way crowds rearrange to make room for a stretcher. Something far in the black knocked 3 times on something that was not a door. The sound came through the pines and down the hall and found the bones of the motel and set them humming like tuning forks. Rooms answered. The lobby window fogged with a handprint, whose fingers were almost right. The ice machine dropped a load of cubes into an empty bin, and the sound counted 1, 2, 3. Caleb, the forest said clear now, ready now. I took 1 step forward.
Do not
That was when
answer.
the corridor shook, quick and mean, like a dog snapping at a hand that feeds it. The tall thing that loves crowns must have passed somewhere, because every light in the building made its 3rd flicker at the same time, a single, silent detonation of strobe. I dropped to my knees, head down, palms on the carpet that had learned 1,000 secrets. My throat tasted of copper and old pennies. The forest didn't go away. It waited. It always waits. When the light steadied, the door to 13 was still open. The man was still gone. The night was still 2 nights pressed together along a seam the shape of a threshold. And the knocking 3, 3, 3 continued along the hall, patient as rain. I backed away. I don't remember deciding to do it. I don't remember standing. I only remember the phone at the desk chirping, once in my hand refusing to answer it. The envelope for the key lay open like a mouth that had finished speaking. I wanted to put the key back into it, to rewind the act, but the hook remained empty, and the key remained elsewhere, and the elsewhere had my name. I heard him call my name from inside the trees. Morning came like it always does here, sideways, through the seams, a gray that pretends to be light until the pines decide whether to allow it. I didn't go home. I sat at the lobby desk with my coat still on and watched the vending machine reflect the window reflect the sign reflect a version of the road that never arrived. The door to 13 was closed. I don't know when it closed. I only know it was open when the night still had a shape, and then the shape changed. I looked for Callahan. His office door stood ajar, the way he leaves it when he wants you to believe he isn't listening. Inside, the chair was pushed back as if he had stood to answer someone, not me. On his desk, a coffee ring, a set of reading glasses, and a folded index card, bare except for 3 words in his slow, square handwriting: keep your crown. No signature, no directions. I checked the maintenance room, the supply closet, the linen shelves. I called his name down the long throat of the hall, and the hall gave it back to me twice, once from each end, polite as always. Outside, the parking lot had exactly 1 set of tire tracks from some time before dawn, and they pointed at the road the way a map points at a border. By noon I had to write manager on site in the log, because there wasn't an option for manager removed. Guests still came. A family in a truck with a loose tailgate. A woman with a cat in a carrier that never made a sound. A man in a suit who kept his wristwatch turned inward and checked it by touch. I registered them. I handed keys. I said the script about ice and vending and Wi-Fi that reaches as far as room 10 and then forgets what it's for. No one asked about the man from 12. No one asks about the ones who stop being questions. The Board of Keys hung patient as ever. In the space where the envelope for 13 had been, there was nothing, no string, no tag, no imprint. I took the envelope from my pocket and walked it out back behind the dumpster.
Front desk, how may I help you?
Where the ground is always damp. I set it in a rusted coffee can and struck a match. The paper curled with the gratitude of something finally allowed to change states. It blackened from the edges to the center, lifted, and became a small bird of ash that forgot how to fly. I felt better for an hour. Then I stepped back into the lobby. The envelope hung where it had always hung. New, unburned. The string tied in the same old, not that loosens when the mountain breathes out. I pressed my thumb to it. Warm, the way a seat is warm, when the person who should be in it just stood. I didn't open it. I didn't have to. The lesson had already been given. You can put a fire to the thing, but not to the place the thing is from. Days shortened. The radio found fewer stations and more sermons. Winter brought its rehearsals dry air that remembers knives, snow that forgets where it was supposed to fall. I worked the night shift like a man who had promised the dark would represent it fairly. My coffee learned to live with metal. My eyes learned to rest without closing. I clipped the sticky note back under the till 20, closed the world, and added another beneath it in smaller letters. 30 Bow. Leela returned to work. Her spine healed around a new idea of straight. When she passed under the lights, the bulbs dimmed half a tone, the way a choir lowers its key to meet a voice. She did not look up anymore. She did not need to. She had learned the shape of ceilings. Sometimes, on the security monitor, room 12's television blinked to life at 2:12 and showed a forest that is not ours. Sometimes the vent cover in the same room fogged and cleared, the way a person breathes while thinking. Sometimes a shadow crossed the window from the wrong direction and left a smear that no hand could wipe. I logged each thing and ran out of words that would make sense to whoever reads logs after the writer stops. I waited for the police to come ask questions. They did not. I waited for Callahan to walk in from the edge of town, the way men do when the town decides they may. He did not. The only knock that ever came was the patient one, and the door that wanted it most never got it, because I didn't answer. On a Tuesday that started as snow and turned into rain halfway down the mountain, I found the key to 13 on its hook again. No envelope. Just the metal itself, the numbers bruised into the head, the teeth old and familiar as scars. I held it in my palm, and it lay there like a sentence that had already been pronounced. I took it off the board and walked it out to the far end of the lot, where the plows leave their piles. 2 stories of gray ice, hardened into a geography that won't be part of any map. I threw the key into the heart of that heap and listened for the note metal makes when it decides to be lost. I went back inside. The hook was not empty. The key hung from it, cold to look at, warm to touch. That night I told myself the most reasonable lies a person can choose, that I had dreamed the parking lot, that I had only meant to throw it and not thrown, that I had miscounted hooks or misread
I have a
numbers,
reservation.
or misremembered
Welcome,
the shape
madam.
of metal.
Right this way.
I told myself there was a second key. I told myself Callahan had come back in a moment between blinks and put order where I had tried to make a mess. The lies didn't hold.
Welcome home. Here
They
is
never
your
do
key.
after you've heard your name called from a
Thank
place
you so much.
that doesn't need distance to be far.
Let me know if you need anything else.
So I work. I pour coffee. I watch the doors in the lobby breathe at a rate that matches my own when I am honest. I keep the blinds closed after 2. I bow when the lights flicker their third. I don't give directions to out. I put the envelope out of my mind until it decides to be a key again. And then I put the key out of my hand until it decides to be an envelope. Sometimes, on the edge of sleep in the hour, when the building picks its stories, I think I hear Callahan's shoes on the back stair. They make a particular sound, leather speaking to old wood, pause at the second landing, continue because something up there has to be checked. I open the door and the stairwell is empty but warm,
good night.
as if someone keeping a promise had just passed. Last night, the phone at the front desk rang once. I lifted the receiver, no voice, just breathing. Deep, steady, almost polite. It filled the line without needing to travel. It sounded like the kind of breath a forest would take if it had learned lungs and decided it should practice.